Hello and welcome to this edition of Planet Hope here on France 24, the programme dedicated to the UN Millennium Development Goals. This week we're reporting from the heart of Argentina, where tens of thousands of families, all with young children, struggle to eat more than once a day. It's a shocking statistic from a country that produces enough food to feed its people 10 times over. Our correspondents met up with one man, though, who is single-handedly taking on the challenges of eradicating hunger and poverty. Juan Flores travels hundreds of kilometres to the very depths of the country to find those who are most in need.
In northern Argentina, 100 kilometers from the first major city, El Cibelar, the village where Nancy lives, far away from it all, with her children.
We get our water from the school tank. It's rainwater. We get it out there so we can drink and cook, for everything. There is no drinking water here. At noon we ate rice, since there was no meat.
In this forgotten province of Chaco, nearly 15,000 children suffer from malnourishment. During the last 12 years, Juan, a volunteer, has come to help them.
There's some clothes, shoes, and a little food.
This morning, he leaves Buenos Aires for the region that is known as the Impenetrable. Nearly 24 hours of travel and stifling heat. But for him, it is impossible to be indifferent to the food shortage that affects the Chaco population. Thanks to its crops and meats, Argentina could feed more than 10 times the country's population. We arrive at Castelli for the first distribution of food. Its people are surprised to receive the visit.
The parents only feed their children when they've made money. Then they can eat. But when there's no work, they don't need anything. You don't get any government assistance? Nothing at all. For example, in the Impenetrable, they received 2 bags of food. You received nothing? No, nothing. No one has ever come to see us like you. This is the first time. Thank you everyone. We have some questions about malnutrition. We think that the children are okay and that they take them to the hospital. But it's clear that some of them are malnourished or undernourished and have parasites. They're in desperate need of medical supervision. They live in ignorance and the children are close to dying. And they end up dying of malnutrition.
Not one car, no buses. Only a few trucks pass through this road.
We'll travel about 500 kilometers to reach a village. We can't get in with a normal car. It has to be an SUV. If it rains, the road is impossible, and you can't get in.
On the road, we meet other volunteers, those who have been trapped by the rain the night before. Indeed, it is complicated to help the 50,000 indigenous peoples who live in this hostile Argentine region.
Currently, there are doctors from UNICEF trained here for these Indians. But because the Indians only trust in each other, they don't trust the white people. For instance, they don't stick to the tuberculosis treatments, and eventually they die of malnourishment.
In the village square, dozens of people have come to listen to the doctor's advice. The agenda: nourishment, first aid, and even endemic diseases. With this coaching, they must in turn convey to their communities, who rarely visit the hospital.
We have seen children who are this big and are 13 years old. What do these children have? They suffer from malnutrition. How many have we seen like this? They are round because they eat pasta, candy, drink soda, but in reality, they are not well fed. Yes, they are chubby, but this is because they only eat fat. You must teach them prevention. A healthy person is a person who eats well. It seemed very important for us to talk about nutrition. It's a topic I didn't plan on discussing. But they have lost all traditions they had of harvesting, planting, and hunting.
Miriam and Mabel visit a family in trouble. They are indigenous, speak the Wichi dialect, and form the indispensable link with the local population. Home inspections and medical checkups. It is difficult for us to engage dialogue with the mother, even though she understands Spanish. We sense the distrust of the white people that Juan has mentioned.
What type of water do you drink? Drinking water, rainwater? Are you able to boil it? What type of water do you drink? They eat only once a day. There are 10 people in this family. They only eat at midday, and for dinner, in the evening, they eat nothing. The children do not drink breast milk. This is due to their mother. She has tuberculosis. She is very thin and anemic.
Faced with this public health problem, the state intervenes timidly. Food distributions are scarce and inadequate.
We intervene as a province and country in the indigenous territory. We have traveled the impenetrable to give them food that the white people in Argentina are used to eating, but not the indigenous community. We realize now that this has been disastrous for their health.
We continue the journey with Juan to an even more remote area, all the more isolated, and the road presents some surprises.
Is this the way to Juana Sorui? Good, okay, then I'm all right. Look at this. Do you see how the forest has disappeared?
Juan no longer recognizes his way. 1 year ago, a thick forest bordered the road. The Indians who lived here were expelled or have sold their land at low prices, being deprived of their basic food after the gathering. Today, the landscape, vast fields of soybeans, but 3/4 of production are exported. Destination, Europe.
What we can see is that the entire forest has been destroyed by bulldozers, and in about 8 months, it will have completely disappeared. It will be replaced by genetically modified soy, cotton, or corn. There are no more natural resources. We don't know where the indigenous people who used to live off the fauna have gone. Today, they live on welfare and are fed by the government.
Back in El Cebilar, the lost village of the impenetrable, Nancy anxiously awaits Juan's visit. It's dinner time, but the rations are very thin.
Today there is no meat.
What will you eat tonight then?
Each of us will have a cup of tea so we can sleep. If we don't have meat, we don't cook.
A few miles away, however, these herds would suffice to feed the indigenous people of Chaco, but the meat is sent to Buenos Aires. Without real economic or electoral weight, the indigenous peoples are of little interest to the Argentine state.
We're arriving to one of the impenetrable villages. This is all forest here. The first house you see there is the village chief's. Next to that is the school, and at the end is another family's house. I hope we can go in there and leave some donations at the school, and that people will come and get them.
The news of Juan's arrival has already spread through the village. One by one, the people approach and come help unload the packages of clothing and food. The nearest town is miles away. Without means of transportation, they often lack many commodities.
Help me. Help me see how much flour there is. We have things that you can't get here, like tea, sugar, salt, and some first aid necessities like gauze and cotton.
We don't get milk every day. We give the children tea and some bread. And sometimes we don't even have bread, only if we make it ourselves. It's homemade bread. And sometimes we only eat bread for an entire day because there is no meat to cook every day.
Everything Juan brings is crucial for Nancy. At the age of 35, she raises her 4 children and lives below the poverty line, just like 92% of indigenous families.
This really helps us, especially for the children. To feed us, we really need it. We only receive assistance when Juan comes. We receive nothing from the government. We have nothing.
Since 2006, dozens of children and adults have died from malnutrition, forgotten in the heart of Argentina.
Well, that's it for this edition of Planet Hope. Don't forget you can watch this programme and all our other programmes again by logging onto our website, france24.com. That's france24.com. Bye-bye.